Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 6 of GT Masters, the review series for Gran Turismo's selection of GT class race cars. And we will also be including, as I've mentioned before, some vehicles which aren't strictly speaking official racing cars, but fit within the same kind of category and the same limitations. Now, in this particular episode, we're featuring the first variation of one of the most popular racing cars on Gran Turismo of the GT class. Popular in as much as the amount of them that we have offered by Polyphony, not necessarily the most popular in terms of how many people actually use them. Now, you could argue that the most common race car on Gran Turismo is the GTR. There are a lot of variations of the Nissan GTR. Second only to that, though, is pretty much the Audi R8. There are a lot of different versions of this car on the game, especially racing versions, and there are premium ones and non-premium ones. And also, they have drastically different prices. Some of them only cost 400,000 credits, some of them cost over 1.5 million. So, which one should you buy if you're looking for an Audi R8 race car? Well, this particular model, as I said, is the first one to be featured in the series, and we are going to be reviewing all of the major Audi R8 GT class machines, but this is the 2009 non-premium, so you don't get that detailed interior, but it's the R8 LMS Team PlayStation. Now, it's to be noted that there are technically two versions of this car on the game. There's the PlayStation liveried version, which you can see here, and there's also non-premium, but a silver version, which, if I remember correctly, you can change the colour on. Now, if also I remember correctly, you cannot repaint it. I may be wrong about that, but as far as I can remember, you cannot repaint it. But you do have a choice of colours. Now, both cars are pretty much exactly the same. It just depends on if you want a version which is essentially a base model, or this car which has the livery. Now, of the two, I personally prefer this model because it looks more official. But this is one of the more expensive R8 race cars. It costs 1,575,000 credits. And to put it plainly, that makes it one of the most expensive GT class machines. It is on the higher end of the GT spectrum. That's almost, in fact, prototype money. So what does it have to offer? Because the R8 is known as being a very good high-performance car, and this is based on the V10 version, which is pretty much the best version of the R8 which you can get on the game. So you have that 5.2 litre V10 mid-mounted engine. It's a race car, of course, so you don't get all-wheel drive, it's rear-wheel drive, and it has a very strong on-paper spec. 971 horsepower, fully tuned, 645 pound-feet of torque. It weighs in at a little bit more, actually, than some of the other R8s, at 1,300 kilos, and still puts out just under 750 horsepower per tonne, thanks to that massive power. It is, in fact, as well as being on the higher end of the spectrum for price in the GT class, also on the higher end of the spectrum for power. It is one of the more powerful GT machines. There are some that go over 1,000 horsepower, but this isn't far off from that. And I have to say, in a straight line, this car is a formidable opponent. The top speed is well over 250 miles per hour with low aero. The acceleration is, as you'd expect, very strong. And on circuits such as the Le Mans, it can keep up with almost any other GT machine. But this car does have a very serious downside, which has to be noted for potential buyers. And it's the same downside that the silver version, which is exactly the same as we said, also displays. And that is unfortunately the handling, which is a pretty big downside, considering that's one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, about a racing car. And the reason why it's a downside is because, quite simply, this is one of the worst handling racing cars in the game, from what I've experienced. I would say this is actually worse to drive than the GT6 Spec Honda NSX. And any who have watched my Tour of Japan series will know that in pretty much every episode featuring the NSX, I noted just how awkward that car's handling is. It can be worked around, but it has a very strange way of steering, almost like it pivots from the centre of the car rather than turning from the front. This Audi takes that to a whole new level. The handling is almost awful. Now, I've tried a lot of different things with this car. I've given it the stiffest differential setup you can possibly get, the maximum downforce, the stickiest tyres, and a ton of camber. And still, with all of those things, which I tried in different variations over and over again to try and make it work, still has some of the most unruly handling of any GT car I have ever driven. And that is quite simply not the case with all of the R8s. Some of them are actually very good. The Team Orica version and the Team Phoenix version are both very good cars. So why this particular model isn't kind of stumps me, to be honest, because the fact that it costs almost 4 times the price of the other R8s would indicate that it's a lot better. But it's quite simply not. So if you're looking to buy an R8, I can't lie about this. If a car is not good, I need to tell you guys. And I have to say, I would not recommend this car. But that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, thanks for watching.